Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Perza MMA. I am Carl Perza. Today, I am with UFC fighter. He's making his return to the octagon, going down the Apex on Saturday. He is Mr. Connor Matthews. He is taking on Jose Delgado. Connor, what's going on, brother? We are fight week. We are Monday. It's soon.
Yeah, man, Monday fight week. I always love fight weeks. It's just a different like feeling in the air, and I feel great. I just had a great pad session today. You know, making the final little touches, and I'm ready to go.
What's that feeling like, man, when you touch down in Vegas, get off the plane, knowing what's about to happen? Is excitement?
Yeah, man, I love Vegas. Fight capital of the world. So it's like fighting here, doing it's just a dream come true. Really, I'm fighting in Vegas in the UFC. It just feels like it's just how it's all supposed to be. And now like fighting having the apex, it's like it really makes me feel like a true professional athlete. You know what I mean? Getting all the just like the nice treatment you get through the PI, the performance and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, man, it's a dream come true, and I'm enjoying every second of it.
One thing I think is really cool about you, you've been doing this for a very long time. I mean, amateur contests dating back to 2011. We're
Yeah.
at a place so many people are watching this in this day and age. Few people realize, man, 15, 20 years ago, people were calling this human cockfighting. It wasn't legal
Yeah.
everywhere. It was like the wild, wild west. Did you start at a time? Do you have any stories, maybe fighting in bars or mystery opponents? Do you have anything like that?
I to be honest, like my first MMA fight, I never even been to an MMA fight. Okay, seeing the cage to go to that was my first time seeing. So, and we didn't have social media like it was back in the day, so I didn't see like pictures of it. You know what I mean? It was like all of a sudden I was like at the fights. I was like, and I was scared as hell. Not gonna lie to you, I was like, oh my god, what am I getting myself into? Cause, 'cause I was a karate kid growing up, so I competed, in that fashion, but I never competed in MMA. So yeah, man, just seeing the evolution of the sport. And like, kind of was like a weird thing that I did when I was a kid. I remember being like, "Oh, what is he doing? Like, that's crazy. He does a cage fighting," and now it's such a mainstream sport. And just seeing the evolution of it, it's been really cool. So yeah, it's been. And I mean, I've had my bar fights and I have had all that stuff, but being a young kid from Boston, that kind of stuff does happen.
I've talked to a lot of you Boston fighters, and one thing that I keep realizing is the amount of talent that's in that area of the United States. I mean, let's just look at the regional scene here. You got CES, you got Combat Night, you got Cage Titans, all these different guys in the UFC, BKFC, all these different promotions. What is it about Bostonians and fighting?
I think it's just that we have a lot of that Irish culture, that Irish fight culture from up there, and it's just like, it's cold and miserable out, and so we're just angry, and I think we just have to go into the gym and just let all our frustration out from just freezing our asses off all the time. So, MMA is a perfect opportunity for us to do that.
For you growing up in that area, who are some of the inspirations? I mean, were you looking up to the Brendan Wards and, maybe the Rico DeShulo, Charles Rosas of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe Lozon was not my number one guy that when I was growing up. I grew up going to his gym, so that's where I kind of like really saw. He's the first UFC fighter that I ever met is Joe Lozon. So and then Brendan Ward. I used to spar with Brendan Ward. Pre like when I was an amateur. You know what I mean? It's back in the day. So definitely guys, Rick Hahn. Chuck O'Neill, some other guys. These guys like back in the day, and like that was when they're getting on the Ultimate Fighter and all that stuff. But Ultimate Fighter was a big show on regular TV. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a streaming thing. It was more people were into it back then. So yeah, those are the guys that I really took as inspiration growing up.
There's one big team in Massachusetts. They call themselves the New England Cartel.
Sure.
Obviously, Calvin Cater's on their Rob Font. You're part of
Yep.
that. How did you enjoy those? How did you join that group?
I love it, man. It's been, I would not be where I'm at if it wasn't for those guys like Tyson Chartier, Robin Calvin, Tom Pags, another kid who's coming up, absolute stud, Nick Fiore, Chris Mantino. All these guys, man, they made me who I am. I've gone to war with these guys in the gym, and just like iron sharpens iron. They built me up to get me prepared for the fight in the UFC. So I'm just super grateful for having them. I travel a lot. Like I live in the South Shore. We train in the North Shore of Massachusetts. I drive an hour and 45 minutes to sometimes if I'm in traffic, it's over 2 hours to get there. But it's worth it just for the bodies that I get when I get there. So
You've already fought on a plethora of UFC platforms at this point, from being in the Contender Series a couple times. This is going to be your second actual fight night for the UFC. You made there quick. I think after 5 regional fights, you made it to the Contender Series. Were you a little surprised at how quick it took you to get there?
It was quick in the number of fights, but it was slow in the way it was happening because I was during the pandemic, so I had a long time in between fights. Like I've been, to be honest, for as my professional, I've been only fighting once or twice a year. Since I started fighting, and that's just due to injuries and all that stuff. So it took me a while to get here, like in time. But yeah, 5 fights. I hit the local in the local scene. I was struggling to get fights. I had a lot of first round finishes, quick knockouts, and like none of the good guys wanted to fight me. And then, I would have to get fill-ins for last second and I'd fight guys with bad records. You know what I mean? So it's like, I was really, really grateful when I got that Contender Series fight, a shot for the first time, for sure.
Your second time on the Contender Series, obviously, by Yair Flores, were able to get the win. What was that moment like, being able to shake Dana White's hand, knowing that you're part of the family?
Oh man, it was a dream come true. So before that, I fought on Dana White's Looking for a Fight, which was on Combat Zone, and so I was just by the grace of God, I got super lucky because he saw me in a fight against Francis Marshall the first time, and I had a war with Francis, you know what I mean, but I lost. So you don't usually always get another shot at the Contender Series after losing, but thank God that just. Dana decided to come to Boston that year for Dana White's Looking for a Fight, and just by the grace of God, put on a great performance that night. And then I got matched up against a fighting nerds guy, Jais Ferreras. He was 10-0, killer from Brazil, all first round like finishes and that. And so going into that fight, I was super, super nervous, super scared, kind of, you know what I mean? But I got it done. And it really just, I took the hard way up the mountain, I say. But at the end, it gave me a lot of confidence to come into the UFC and perform because I got challenged my whole way getting to the UFC. I had to go, tooth and nail to get here. And I'd rather have that and knowing what I can do to get here. I know I belong. You know what I mean? I tell you this today, like I feel like I'm undeniable. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna prove myself and why I deserve to stay here this week.
So many people watch this in this day and age, and I think one thing the casual fans don't realize is, they look at the McGregors, the Joneses, the Habibs, and they're like, "Wow, it must be unbelievable to be a fighter." Little do they know, man. I mean, it's a very tough lifestyle. Obviously, when you're fighting on the regional scene, you're losing money. Like you're
Yeah,
not doing too well there. Even when you make it to the big shows, you're getting paid more, but there's a lot of expenses, hotels and planes, and
yeah.
I don't think people really understand what guys in their first couple contracts are making in the big shows. You have to train. You have to pay to train. You have mentioned that you just drive about an hour, 45 minutes each way to train. You're taking time away from your families. A lot of guys have the 9 to 5 jobs just to fund this. You've been doing this for a very long time, man. What's made you want to keep pushing, keep punching and kicking?
It's my passion. Martial arts in general is passion. If I wasn't, like I always say this, like if I wasn't going to be a UFC fighter, I would still be in the gym every single day training because that's what I love to do. And fighting is just being a fighter is just an aspect of being a martial artist. And I'm obviously going to just like take this as long as I can. You know what I mean? I'm going to be in here. I love it. I mean, I was going to do this as long as I can, as best as I can, just to see how far I can take this sport. And I mean, that's what it really just comes down to. It's just my passion. I just love martial arts. And yes, I've lost way more money than I've made so far in my fighting career for sure. But like, I don't think life's all about money and you know what I mean? Life's about experiences and friendships, like all that stuff, like my teammates, like all that stuff I've acquired through martial arts. I would never take it back for anything. It's all worth it. And I'm just happy to be here and happy to be still fighting in the UFC right now.
Last time we saw you out, you made your debut against Dennis Pachuca. Obviously, didn't go the way you wanted, but what are
Yep.
some of the takeaways from that?
Yeah, that was definitely it was a rough. I didn't have a good game plan going into that fight. I think I got a little bit wide eye for first time fighting in like a big arena. All that kind of stuff kind of caught up to me. I had a ton of media for that fight. I had 6 different film crews following me around for 6 weeks leading up to that fight. So just like from the U.S. Air Force was following me around. I had all this other stuff which is great because cameras are going to be there. You got to get used to that. So I don't want to say no, but I think it took away my attention from really focusing on my fights, and that I kind of got away from that this fight camp. I think I was really locked in. I did everything I possibly could do to focus on this fight and make sure I'm as prepared as possible. like I said, I leave no stone left unturned. I freaking did everything I could. I know this fight can, which gives me a lot of confidence going into this fight. And it feels a lot like I did for my Jairas Ferreira's fight when I knew, I was fighting against a 10-0 guy, and it's like, if I don't win this fight, I could get, this is never going to be my last chance of fighting in the UFC. And that's the kind of way I look at it. I lost a fight, my first fight on the contract. I want to win this fight because I want to continue my UFC fight career. So I did everything I possibly could this fight camp to get ready for this fight.
You just alluded a little bit to your background in the military. How has
Yep.
the values and morals that you were instilled through the military? How does that translate to the fight game?
It's been huge. I mean, I would say this, even though I spent 6 years away from fighting, being in the military, I became a better fighter mentally because of that. Being in special operations, it's a really hard training. You really learn how to grind. You really get put into stressful situations, and how to overcome those. And it wasn't just an easy ride for me to make it in that either. You know what I mean? I had setbacks. I blew up my knee during training, and I recovered from that. I had to come back at it. I failed some really hard schools, and I had to, come back and redo those schools and pass them. And it was a super hard grind for me to become a combat controller. And I just, I apply that mentality into being a fighter now. It's just a little bit easier to do when you're doing something you love.
When you made that decision to go to the military, did you ever envision that something like this was going to happen in the future?
There's something about my life where I always thought, like, and it sounds crazy. When I was a kid, my dream was to be a professional hockey player. I wanted to be a professional. I always I had something in my head that I was going to be fighting in arenas, and you know what I mean, or playing in arenas. But like now I'm fighting in arenas, and it's just like I kind of feel like I was always destined to do this. And I didn't. I took a definitely a leap of faith leaving the military, and really just saying, I told myself that I can make it to the UFC. I'm gonna do this, and I just I did it. So I mean, trust me, a lot of my family and friends all kind of doubted me when I first made that decision. You know what I mean? To get out of the military, but I already had a hard job in the military to make that. So just to leave that job and leave a paycheck, leave all like the security I had from the military, and just pursue fighting, like you said, that you don't make that much money. I mean, and I knew that, but I just, what I mean. I feel like sometimes you gotta follow your passions and go for it.
I think one thing we're really seeing in mixed martial arts in this day and age is the entertainment side of things. Now you're seeing guys who they're putting on a facade. They're being people they're absolutely not. Why? Because they know it's going to get a title shot. Knows they're going to get their paydays increased. You're a type of dude, man. You're very yourself. You're not trying to be someone you're not. You're proud of who you are. You're proud of your military background. How do you feel like mixed martial arts has been affected by personality?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a negative connotation, like a negative, like, you know what I mean? Like, I see it a lot. People have to say crazy things, and they like, let's look at Colby Covington, right? Like, Colby Covington was kind of on the down, and all of a sudden he said, put on a Trump hat and started talking a lot of shit, and he signs his way, growing in the sport, being huge. I mean, hey, teach their own. You got to do what you got to do to stay in the sport and keep fighting and make money. So I don't really judge people on that. And if that's your thing and you can pull it off, you can do that. You know what I mean? If you can talk this shit and walk the walk and do it, I had all respect to you, but that's just not who I am. I'm just gonna be who I am. And like you said, I was authentically myself. And I let my fighting do the talking for me. And hopefully people can get behind that, for everything I represent for my military career and who I am as a person.
So you're taking on Jose Delgado this weekend, a guy from the MMA lab, guy who got it done on the Contender Series last year. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
Good challenge, man. He comes from a really good gym. He's a tall, lanky 45er. He's got great kickboxing. I know those lab guys have good jiu-jitsu as well. So I mean, he's gonna come out there. He comes to fight. You know what I mean? He's a kid. He's gonna throw a lot of big head kicks. He's gonna be dangerous. But I'm prepared for that. I'm ready. I'm ready for the fight. And it's his first time in the fighting in the UFC. So I know he's gonna have those nerves as well. So like I did. So but I'm gonna get it done. I think he's gonna be a good challenge, but I'm gonna get it done.
One thing I love about you, man, is that you're such a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Obviously you have that skill set on the hands, and then if you can get them on the ground, I mean, the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling is absolutely unbelievable. Do you think that's going to make the difference in this one?
Yeah, man. I always say, I'm the jack of all trades. You know what I mean? I'm a very, well-rounded MMA fighter, and that's I'll tell you my game plan. That's what it is, man. It's gonna be a little bit of everything. I can strike with the strikers. I started off with karate when I was a kid, so it's not like I've never seen a kick before. And I can wrestle now. I've definitely worked on my wrestling in the last 3 years a lot, and I'm a jiu-jitsu background, so I can do a little bit of everything. So that's my plan, is just the variety and just push my pace against my opponents and break them.
You're fighting in the apex yet again. With it being a smaller cage, do you think that goes in your favor in this contest?
Yeah, certainly. I think, kickers are going to need a little bit more room to move around, and I can, obviously I can get them in a smaller space, put them against the cage, and, beat them up, do what I need to do. So, I mean, I'm not afraid to strike with this guy. I've been boxing. I'm from Boston. We got boxing gyms all over the place, man. This is not my first fist fight. So, you know what I mean? I'm ready to strike with this guy, but, smaller cage, yeah, I could definitely use my diversity style and just, change it up on him.
I've been really excited for this card for a while. Obviously, the main event's awesome, and Cannonier and Gregory Rodriguez. But the co-main event, one of your teammates, Calvin Kattar, making his return, fighting Youssef Zalal. Is that pretty cool to be able to fight on a card with Calvin?
I mean, it's so cool. It's just something comforting, about just like going to war with one of your teammates, one of the guys you've looked up to, and like sharing a car with them. I know a lot of Boston's going to be tuning into that fight, especially me kicking off the main card, and I know a lot of people are going to come in there watching Calvin, and you've probably heard of me before, so it's going to be cool. I know Massachusetts is behind us and going to be tuning in on this fight night. So yeah, super excited to get out there and share a car with Calvin.
All right, so one thing I ask all you Boston guys, obviously Boston is a sports town, it's the city of champions. If
Yes,
you
sir.
had to do a Mount Rushmore, so top 4 Boston athletes, who are we getting?
You got Bobby Orr.
Mm-hmm.
You got David Ortiz. You get Tom Brady. And now this is a hard one for the last one. I would say for Larry Bird, he's gonna be the last one.
I like it. I agree.
Yeah.
You
All
ever
sports.
you ever think one day possibly fighting for the UFC in Boston? Is that something that crossed your mind?
That's an absolute dream. This is what I've been telling myself, is I get to this fight, I get a big win in this, and then hopefully the UFC comes back to Boston this summer or in the fall. They usually do every other year. So it'd be this year. I think the last fight there was Sean O'Malley versus Aljo. So we're coming up on that time where the UFC is going to come back to Boston. So I'm hoping we get big finishes. I know Calvin's fighting. Rob was slotted to fight next week. So I don't know if that's happening right now because Dominic Cruz is out. So Wade's looking. Is all the boys are getting fights in right now. Mitch Raposa is another kid. He's fighting down in that Miami card coming up. So we're all getting our fights in right now, and hopefully we have some time to train up and get a fight in Boston, stack the card.
For you, what's the goal? What are you looking to accomplish at this point of your career?
I mean, I just want to be a name in the UFC. I think I just want to make a name for myself. I know I'm a little bit older right now. I'm 30, turning 33 this year. So I got probably a good another 5-6 years left of being a top of my game athlete, I would say. And you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to make it as far as I can and do the best I can, make it high as I can. I mean, my mindset is, at least top 10. That's why I really want to break that top 10 as a fighter.
I talked about it a little bit, but obviously so many eyeballs on the sport. And now you have a new phenomenon. They're called the casual fan. So these are usually the people that are drunk. They're at B-dubs or the cheap seats of the fights. They like to yell, twist them in the you-know-what. You're crotch, you're humping, all this crazy stuff. What are your thoughts on this phenomenon? What do you think of these people?
I mean, there's like anything. Like I don't take anything they say seriously because they don't understand. I mean, like you read the comments, right? I mean, people have no idea. People hate people for no reason. People talk so much shit on like, so it's like, hey, casual fans, like it is what it is, man. Like they have no idea what they're talking about. So I just kind of, but guess what? It's good to have them because what I mean, they pay for the sport, and if the sport grows big enough, I mean, fighters going to get paid more. It should change the dynamic. You know what I mean? So like. We got to have them. So, but I don't really take anything they say seriously. It doesn't really affect me.
All right, Connor, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome when you take on Jose Delgado this Saturday at UFC Apex?
First round knockout, $50K bonus right there. That's what it is. Not get punched and knock him the fuck out. That's the perfect world right there.
One thing I forgot to mention a little earlier, but you just set it up so perfectly. Some people mix reactions about these different fight cards. They don't like it that it's in the Apex. They wish they were in live arenas. But me, as just looking from the outside looking in here, I feel like if you're trying to get a bonus, you want to be on these fight cards, because to me, it doesn't matter if you're the first fight, if you're the main event. I just feel like you have a better chance to get one on here.
I agree. And I also, I mean, I'm in the main card, and I feel like, the later you are in the card, the better. And, you have a better chance of getting a bonus. And, so yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I don't care where if for me, it's like, I like the Apex because I don't have to deal with any of the, all my friends flying in and worrying, having listened to them, finding hotels. And, that's a little bit of stress. And then, performing on that when you say you fight somewhere and all your friends fly in and you have to perform, and you can put a little of stress. It's nice not having that part of the game at all. It reminds me of the Contender Series. It reminds me of, I fought here before. I know what it looks like. I know, for me, it's just another day in the office.
Do you miss being able to sell tickets on the regional scene?
No, I don't miss that at all. I hated selling tickets. I like going and showing up and fighting and going home and getting paid for what I do is just to fight. That's all I like to do.
There you go, Connor. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for talking to me. I'm sure you have so many things to do this week, but really appreciate your time, and I wish you nothing but the best, brother.
I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
That's it. That's it for us tonight. That is Mr. Connor Matthews and Carl Perza. Stick around, fight fans.